when tech billionaire Elon Musk's private jet makes an emergency landing on an uncharted island. It seems like just a stroke of bad luck, but the seemingly deserted island harbors an advanced research facility with technology beyond anything the world has seen as Elon and his companions discover the facility's true purpose. Stealing innovative ideas directly from the minds of the world's greatest thinkers, they're drawn into a dangerous game of cat and mouse with the mysterious Vivian Cole, what Hackatory begins as a fight for. Survival becomes a battle to protect not just Elon's ideas, but the very sanctity of human thought itself. The truth behind this shadowy operation will reveal a shocking connection to Elon's past that will change everything he thought he knew about himself. The sleek white private jet cut through the dark storm clouds. Like a knife, lightning flashed outside the windows, making Elon Musk look up from his tablet. He wasn't scared of flying. He built rockets, after all. But something about this storm felt different. How much longer, Reggie Elon? Called to the cockpit, where Captain Reginald Dawson was guiding the plane through the rough weather about 3 hours. Sir Captain Dawson replied, "This storm wasn't on our radar when we left Tokyo, but we should clear it soon." Elon nodded and went back to reviewing notes. From the tech conference, the trip had been worth it. New partners for his companies and fresh ideas for the future next to him. His assistant, Leora Chang, was typing rapidly on her laptop. "The team in Texas is excited about your new battery design," Leora said without looking up. "They've already started running simulations." Elon smiled. Leora was the best assistant he'd ever had, always one step ahead, and never afraid to tell him when his ideas needed work with her sharp mind and sharper tongue. She kept his feet on the ground, even when his thoughts were among the stars. Suddenly, the plane dropped. Like a rock, Elon's tablet flew up, hitting the ceiling before clattering to the floor. Leora's laptop slid off her knees. The lights flickered. "Sorry about that," Captain Dawson called back. "Just some turbulence." But Elon could hear the worry. In the pilot's voice, after 15 years of flying together, he knew when Reggie was putting on a brave face. Another drop, harder this time. The plane shook violently. Outside, rain lashed against the windows like angry fists. A sharp ping sound filled the cabin, followed by a red war warning light on the wall. "Mr. Musk M. Chang, Captain." Dawson's voice was now tight with tension. "I need you both to strap in immediately." Leora quickly closed her laptop and secured her seatbelt. "What's happening?" she asked, her usual calm voice now shaking slightly. Before Elon could answer, the plane lurched to the right. A loud grinding noise came from the left engine, followed by silence, the worst sound you could hear on a plane engine one is out. Captain Dawson announced, his hands flying over the controls. "Engine 2 is overheating. We're losing altitude." Elon gripped his armrests. He'd faced danger before, but this was different in his factories and test sites. He controlled the variables up here, thousands of feet above the Pacific Ocean, in a metal tube with failing engines. He was just a passenger options. Elon asked, his mind already calculating distances, fuel reserves and survival rates working on it. Sir Captain Dawson replied, his voice steady, despite the chaos around them. "There's a small island about 40 miles south. Not much, but it has a stretch of beach we might be able to use." "Might?" Leora echoed her, knuckles white as she gripped her seat. "It's our best chance," Elon said. He turned to see fear in Leora's eyes. Not panic, just the honest fear of someone facing bad odds. "We're going to be okay." The plane banked left as Captain Dawson adjusted their course. The second engine made a horrible screeching sound, then settled into an uneven rhythm. "Mayday! Mayday! Mayday!" Captain Dawson's voice came through the cabin speakers as he made the emergency call. "This is private aircraft. November 775. X-ray. We have lost one engine, and the second is failing. 2 souls on board, plus crew. We are attempting emergency landing at coordinates static, cut off the rest of his message. The radio was dead. The plane dropped again, this time not stopping. They were falling, not dying. Ding. A controlled descent, becoming less controlled by the second grab. Anything loose and strap it down. Elon shouted, unbuckling to secure items that had become dangerous projectiles in the cabin. Leora helped catching a flying coffee mug before it hit the wall. They worked quickly, strapping down laptops, tablets and bags 20 mil to the island. Captain Dawson called, "Prepare for rough landing through breaks in the clouds." Elon caught glimpses of dark blue ocean. No ships, no other planes, just endless. Water, then through a gap in the storm. A tiny patch of green and white. "The island, there it is." Elon pointed. "Can we make it? We'll find out." Captain Dawson said. Grimly, the second engine gave a final roar, and then quit. The sudden silence was deafening. The plane became a glider, losing altitude with each passing second. "Get in your seats." And brace Captain Dawson ordered Elon and Leora, strapped in. Elon reached over and gave Leora's hand a quick squeeze tech conference in Tokyo emergency landing on a deserted island, still better than that board meeting. Last month he joked, despite everything. Leora laughed. "If we survive this, I want a raise deal." The island grew larger in the windows. It was small, maybe 3 mil across, with a white sandy beach on one side and rocky cliffs on the other. Captain Dawson aimed for the beach brace for impact. He shouted, head down. Arms crossed, Elon took one last look out the window. A beach was rushing up to meet them, wet sand gleaming in the stormy light. He tucked his head down against his chest, crossed his arms and closed his eyes. The impact was both softer and harder than he expected. The landing gear hit sand with a jolt that rattled his teeth. The plane bounced once, twice, then skidded forward, throwing up walls of sand on both sides. A horrible scraping noise filled the cabin as metal dragged against earth. Something hit Elon's head, a falling oxygen mask. He thought pain flashed behind his eyes. The world spun, then steadied after what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. The plane stopped moving. Rain still pounded the fuselage. Wind howled outside, but they weren't falling any. Leora Elon turned to his assistant. She was bent forward, still in the brace position, but looked up at the sound of her name. A small cut on her forehead dripped blood, but she seemed otherwise okay. "I'm alive," she said, sounding surprised. "Are you?" "Seems like it." Elon unbuckled his seatbelt and stood on shaky legs. "Reggie, you okay up there?" A groan came from the cockpit, followed by Captain Dawson's voice. "I'm in one piece, just checking systems." Elon made his way to the cockpit. Captain Dawson sat amid a maze of dead screens and limp. Instruments, a nasty bruise was forming on his cheek where Hedda hit the control panel, but he was conscious and alert. "Nice landing," Elon said. "Meaning it, you saved our lives, Captain." Dawson shook his head. "Don't thank me yet, we're alive. But we're also stranded. Radio's dead, satellite phones dead, and we're not on any flight path that would have heard our mayday. So what now?" Leora asked, appearing behind Elon. She'd wiped the blood from her face, leaving a smear on her sleeve. Now Elon said, looking out through the cracked windshield at the strange island. "Beach. We see where we've landed, the three of them." Moved to the main cabin door with effort. Captain Dawson forced it open. Rain and wind immediately whipped inside, along with the smell of salt. And something else, something sweet and unfamiliar. They stared out at a pristine white beach, leading to thick jungle. No building, no lights, no signs of human life. Just wild, untouched nature, stretching as far as they could see, middle of nowhere. Leora whispered, "Could be worse." Elon replied, his mind already racing with plans for survival. For repair, for rescue. Little did he know, as they stepped onto the wet sand of that unknown island, that the crash was only the beginning of the strange journey of his life. The storm passed. During the night, they'd spent those dark hours in the damaged plane, taking inventory of their supplies and making plans when morning came. Brilliant! Sunshine replaced the angry clouds, revealing their surroundings in full light. For the first time, we need to find fresh water. First, Captain Dawson said, shouldering a backpack made from an airplane seat. Cover, then food. I'll check the plan's emergency beacon again. But it wasn't working last night. Elon nodded, scanning the tree line. The beach stretched for about half a mile, with dense jungle. Beyond in the distance, a small mountain rose from the center of the island. I've been thinking, Leora said, applying a fresh bandage to her forehead. Cut, this island isn't on any maps, or Captain Dawson would have known about it. Before the crash, not necessarily, the pilot replied. There are thousands of tiny islands in the Pacific. Not all of them are marked on flight charts, especially if they're uninhabited. Elon wasn't listening. Something about the jungle caught his eye. Look at the trees, he said, pointing. They're different. The three walked closer to the edge of the jungle. The plants indeed looked strange. Some had leaves that seemed too perfectly shaped with unusual patterns. Flowers bloomed in colors Elon had never seen before, including one with petals that glowed a faint blue even in daylight. That's not natural, Elon said, reaching out to touch the glowing flower. Plants don't just glow like this. Don't touch it, Leora warned. It could be poisonous. Captain Du frowned. I don't like this. Let's stick to our plan. Find water, find food, try to signal for help. They followed what looked like a natural path into the jungle. Strangely, the path seemed almost too convenient, winding between trees in a way that allowed easy passage. Does this look like a trail to anyone else? Leora asked after they'd walked for 20 minutes. Elon had been wondering the same thing. Too neat for an animal path, he agreed the trail LED them. To a small stream of clear water, Captain Dawson tested it with equipment from the plan's emergency kit. It's safe to drink, he announced. Almost too pure. Actually, no bacteria at all. As they filled water bottles, Elon noticed something odd about the fruit trees growing nearby. Their branches hung heavy with color fruits, but every tree was perfectly spaced from the next. Almost like someone planted these, he said. Suddenly, this isn't wild growth. Look at the spacing. It's too even. Leora picked up a round purple fruit. Should we? Try it. I'll go first, Elon said. Taking the fruit, he bit into it. Cautiously, sweet juice filled his mouth, tasting like a mix of blueberry and mango. It's good, really good, actually. While they ate, Elon examined the plants more closely. Many had features he'd never seen: leaves with tiny solar panel-like structures, roots that seemed to form connections with neighboring plants. These aren't normal plants, Elon said, studying a glowing blue fruit hanging from a nearby tree. Someone designed these. This is bioengineering way beyond anything I've seen, like genetically modified. Captain Dawson asked more than that. This is Elon struggled to find the words. This is what you'd create if you were reinventing plants from scratch. Leora wandered a few steps away and gasped. Guys, come, look at this. Partially buried in the sand. Near the stream was a metal object about the size of a dinner plate. Elon brushed away the sand to reveal what looked like an advanced technology device with no visible buttons or screens. What is it? Captain Dawson asked. I don't know, Elon admitted, turning it over in his hands, but it's not something you'd find in a typical electronics store. The alloy feels different. The object was cool to the touch. Despite sitting in the sun, its surface had a pattern that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Nothing Elon had ever seen, not even in his own advanced factories, looked quite like this. We should keep moving, Captain Dawson said, glancing nervously at the surrounding jungle. See if we can find higher ground to spot any ships as they continued along the trail they found. More strange plants, and occasionally other metal objects half buried in the soil. the path eventually led them to a clearing with fruit trees and what looked like a garden of vegetables. "This is definitely not natural," Leora said, looking at the neat rows of plants. "Someone lives here." Captain Dawson bent down, suddenly examining the ground. "Footprints," he said quietly, "human-made today, or yesterday." Elon felt a chill, despite the warm air. "We're not alone here." They followed the footprints to the edge of the clearing where they disappeared into. Another dense section of jungle as they stood deciding whether to follow. Captain Dawson pointed to the mountain in the distance. "We should climb to higher ground." "Before sunset, maybe we can see a sound," interrupted him, a faint humming noise coming from deeper in the jungle. It rose and fell in a pattern that seemed almost musical but definitely mechanical. "What is that?" Leora whispered. "Let's find out," Elon said, already moving toward the sound. The path grew wider as they walked. More obviously maintained, they passed more gardens filled with strange plants, some with leaves that turned to follow them, like living solar panels, others with fruits in geometric shapes no natural evolution would create. As evening approached, they reached another clearing. From there they could see lights flickering through the trees ahead, soft blue and white glows that pulsed gently in the growing darkness. "Electricity," Elon said. "Someone has power here or something." Leora added quietly. Captain Dawson checked his watch. "It'll be dark soon. We should head back to the plane where it's safe." Elon stared. At the distant lights, every instinct told him to investigate, to solve the mystery. But the rational part of his brain knew Dawson was right. Wandering an unknown jungle at night was dangerous. "We'll come back tomorrow." Elon decided first thing in the morning as they turned to head back to the beach. A noise stopped them. Branches breaking, something moving through the underbrush. They froze, listening. The jungle went silent. Even the strange humming stopped. Then, just as the silence became unbearable, a voice spoke from the darkness between the trees. "Hello, Mr. Musk," it said. "We've been waiting for you." Elon felt his heart skip a beat. Captain Dawson stepped protectively in front of him, and Leora, his hand reaching for the emergency flare gun in his belt. From the shadows stepped a woman in her mid-30s with copper-colored hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit with no visible logos or markings. Her smile was friendly, but her eyes were cautious. "My name is Zara," she said, holding up empty hands to show she wasn't armed. "I'm one of the researchers. Here we detected your plane crash landing, and we're about to send a team to help you researchers," Elon repeated. "What exactly do you research on an unmarked island in the middle of nowhere?" Zara's smile widened. "The future. Mr. Musk, something you're quite familiar with." She gestured toward the lights in the distance. "Please come with me. We have food, proper, medical supplies, and communications equipment. You can contact your people to let them know you're safe." Leora and Captain Dawson looked to Elon, waiting for his decision. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. "Led the way," he said. "But I have a lot of questions." "I'm sure you do," Zara replied, turning toward the lights. "Some of them we can answer, others." She let the thought hang unfinished in the humid air. They followed her through the darkening jungle. The path was now clearly artificial, lined with those same strange glowing plants that provided enough light to see. After about 10 minutes of walking, they reached what appeared to be a solid rock face in the side of a hill. Zara approached the seemingly blank wall and pressed her palm against the surface. To Elon's astonishment, a hidden door slid open, silently revealing a well-lit corridor beyond. "Welcome to Project Genesis," Zara said. Just yearning for them to enter inside was a vast complex that defied the jungle setting outside. Clean white walls, polished floors, and advanced-looking equipment lined the corridors. Staff in similar gray jumpsuits moved purposefully from room to room, many stopping to stare at the newcomers. "This is incredible," Elon whispered, taking in the technology. Around him, some of it looked familiar. Evolved versions of things his own companies were developing. Other devices were completely foreign to him. "How long has this been here, Captain?" Dawson asked, his voice tight with suspicion. "This particular facility, about 8 years," Zara answered, "but our work has been ongoing for much longer." She led them to a room with comfortable seating and a table, laden with fresh fruit bread and what looked like roasted vegetables. "Please eat. Then we can talk more." The food was delicious, better than anything Elon had tasted in the finest restaurants. The vegetables had flavors so intense they seemed almost artificial, yet they were clearly natural. "These are from our agricultural program," Zara explained, noticing Elon's reaction to the food. "Enhanced nutritional profiles, optimized flavor compounds. They can grow in any climate with minimal water. You could end world hunger with these," Leora said, examining a carrot-like vegetable that glowed faintly orange. "That's one of our goals." Zara nodded along with solving several other pressing human problems after they finished eating. Zara LED them to guest quarters, simple but comfortable rooms, with beds, showers, and clean clothes. "Rest tonight, tomorrow. Dr. Finch will meet with you and explain more." "What about contacting our people?" Elon asked. "They'll be looking for us." A flicker of something. Concern crossed Zara's face. "I'm afraid our communications array is undergoing maintenance. It should be operational tomorrow. For now, rest assured that your crash site has been secured, and your belongings are being brought here." After Zara left, the three huddled together in Elon's room to compare notes. "I don't trust her," Captain Dawson said immediately. "This whole setup feels wrong. Why is a research facility this advanced hidden on an unmarked island? And how did they know who you were?" "Mr. Musk, I'm one of the most recognizable people in tech," Elon replied. "Dry, but you're right. Something feels off. She's not telling us everything." Leora sat on the edge of the bed, deep in thought. "Did you notice how some of the technology looks similar to designs from your companies? Not exact copies, but like someone took your ideas and developed them differently." Elon nodded slowly. He had noticed, and it troubled him. "Tomorrow we get answers. For now, let's play along." Sleep came surprisingly easily in the comfortable beds in the morning. They were provided with fresh clothes, all in that same neutral gray, and a breakfast that rivaled the previous night's dinner in quality. Afterward, Zara returned to escort them. "Dr. Finch is ready to meet you." Now she led them deeper into the facility, past laboratories, where scientists worked with equipment. Elon could only partially identify one room contained what looked like a massive 3D printer building, something that pulsed with organic life. Another held rows of plants growing under specialized lights, their structures clearly engineered. Finally, they reached a large circular room dominated by a holographic display showing Earth from space. Real-time weather patterns swirled across its surface. Standing before it was a tall man with silver hair and intense green eyes. "Elon Musk," he said, turning to face them with an expression of barely contained excitement. "I'm Dr. Marcus Finch. I've followed your work for years. Apparently, closely enough to build your own versions," Elon replied, gesturing to the technology around them. Dr. Finch laughed. "We've had similar inspirations, that's all. Brilliant minds often arrive at similar conclusions. What exactly is this place?" Leora asked her, tone professional but firm. "And why is it hidden?" "Project Genesis is humanity's insurance policy," Dr. Finch answered. "We develop solutions to existential threats: climate collapse, food insecurity, pandemic, disease, energy, scarcity, noble goals." Captain Du said, "Still doesn't explain the secrecy." Dr. Finch's smile faded slightly. "Not everyone shares our vision of open-source solutions to humanity's problems. There are powerful entities, governments, corporations, who would rather control these technologies than see them freely distributed." As he spoke, a screen on the wall lit up with a news report. The headline read, "Search continues for missing Musk jet." Below it, Elon saw Images of search vessels combing a completely different section of the Pacific. They're looking in the wrong place, Elon said, a chill running down his spine. A necessary precaution, Dr. Finch replied smoothly. For your safety and ours. Before Elon could respond, a loud hum filled the room as a door on the far side slid open beyond it. Elon glimpsed a massive chamber filled with technology. Unlike anything he'd seen before, at its center stood what looked like a containment unit glowing with blue energy. Strange sounds emanated from within. Not quite. Mechanical, not quite organic. Dr. Finch quickly pressed a button, and the door slid shut. What was that? Elon demanded. Dr. Finch's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes that Mr. Musk is the future, and we'd very much like your help building it. Elon crossed his arms. I don't help with projects. I don't understand. Why don't you start by showing me what's behind that door? Dr. Finch exchanged a glance with Zara. In time. First, let me show you what we can share for the next hour. Dr. Finch LED them on a tour of the facility's more accessible areas. Elon had to admit he was impressed. They had developed self-sustaining energy systems that made his solar technology look primitive. Their water purification methods could extract moisture from almost any source, and their food production systems could grow enormous yields in tiny spaces. This could feed millions in drought-stricken regions, Leora said as they passed through a vertical farm where plants grew in spiraling towers up to the ceiling. Billions, actually. Dr. Finch corrected her 1 acre of our agricultural system can produce the equivalent of 50 acres of traditional farming, using on 1/10 the water and no pesticides. Captain Dawson, who had remained silent through most of the tour, finally spoke up. If your work is so beneficial, why hide it on a secret island? Dr. Finch sighed heavily. The same reason many world-changing technologies are suppressed. Disruption threatens power. Imagine oil companies if we announced unlimited clean energy, or pharmaceutical giants if we released cures instead of treatments, or agri-bus conglomerates if food could be grown anywhere with minimal resources. So you're saying powerful companies would try to stop you? Elon asked. Companies, governments, individuals with vested interests. We've had attempts before. Dr. Finch said we lost good people. They entered a medical wing where patients' researchers with minor injuries and illnesses were being treated with devices that seemed to accelerate healing. A woman with a deep cut on her arm watched as a handheld device closed the wound, before their eyes leaving only a faint pink line. Advanced tissue. Regeneration. Dr. Finch explained it works by stimulating the body's own healing mechanisms, like stem cells. Elon asked, more advanced, we can target specific tissues, bones, even nerve pathways. As they walked, Elon noticed certain doors were locked or guarded staff members watched them pass with curious eyes. Some looked excited to see him. Others nervous they approached another secured door, unlike the others. This one had a red light above it and required both a fingerprint and retinal scan from Dr. Finch to open our main research lab. He explained as the heavy door slid open. Inside was a cavernous space filled with the workstations. Scientists in white lab coats moved between testing areas. The center of the room held a massive spherical chamber made of a clear material that wasn't quite glass. What is that? Elon asked, pointing to the sphere, our quantum computation core. Dr. Finch said proudly, it processes data at speeds that make traditional supercomputers look like pocket calculators. Elon approached the sphere, studying its structure, the material.